it away.
Sweet swash.
Hello, children. Welcome back to another edition of the Bin Podcast. And of course, as always, we are live on Twitch on Binsday, and this will also be on YouTube on Mikey when? Fridays?
Friday.
Yes. As always, I am joined by Mikey Famine, Brenna Duncan, Wayne, the Wayne Maker. But we have some guests. We have Tim, the Bristol. We have Aicila, we have Jenny, and Chaos. Welcome. Let's start with you, Aicila. Good evening. Let's start with you, Aicila. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a podcaster, I'm a Bicurean, and a business consultant for people who are trying to make things different. I'm also a dog sitter this week. It's pretty fun. I play D&D online with Natural Born Heroes, and I am a huge fan of The Bin.
You've also been a guest on The Bin before, haven't you?
I have, a couple times.
Yes.
I love what you guys are up to and the chance to chat with you and hear what you're doing. So thanks for having me on.
Awesome.
Welcome back, and we're happy to have you. Jenny, I'm passing the ball over to you.
Gee, what about me? Well, the scene you're looking at is the backyard of my the town where I live. It's known as Houston.
What?
It's the good Houston. This one's in Minnesota. I guess I'm your trans customer. Is that what I am today?
You're my token.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I'm your trans token. No, I'm not. I'm not the only one here.
Oh, that's true. I messed up.
I would be considered one of the veterans in the trans community. I'm probably one of the world's oldest transgender people. I transitioned back in 1979. So it's been a while. And we'll just go on from there.
And Chaos.
Hiya.
Welcome back.
Thanks. I use she, her, and they, them pronouns. If Jenny is the token binary trans person here, I guess that makes me the token non-binary trans person here. I am I guess a content creator online, though that's currently on hiatus because my laptop's broken.
No.
The relevance here, I guess, is that I'm a nerd and so like to know various pieces of information, especially in relation to things about minorities I'm part of, and I'm trans.
And I'm Mikey Famine. I am a producer, singer, songwriter, chef, DJ, sommelier. No, I'm just kidding.
And business daddy.
Business daddy. Well, Tim, tell people all about your show on Wednesdays on the BinPodcast Network.
Oh, so I have a show on the Bin Podcast Network called Speaking from the Center every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time because the Bin Podcast Network swallowed my show whole.
Ha
I also own a food truck. We make grilled cheese. It's delicious.
So if Mike is your business daddy, what does that make me?
Business weird uncle?
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
Okay.
That sounds about right.
That works.
Yep, I don't mind that. Wayne, what are you up to, my friend?
Oh,
I think he's trying to communicate.
Yeah, well,
Is that English?
that is the best answer you've given. It's not going to be as fun for our podcast listeners, but you know, it is what it is. Brenna.
Hey, Tim, give me a wrestling reference that'll really piss off Wayne.
Oh, yeah,
Kenny Omega is the greatest wrestler of all time.
If anyone wants to disagree with that statement, let them speak now.
Or forever
Let
hold their
them
peace.
Speak. If someone in the next 10 seconds doesn't tell me why, Kenny
That is
Omega
gospel
the
truth.
Then we have to assert it as true, and I will change that to Wayne's name.
I have an even better one. This will get him. The Young Bucks are the greatest tag team of all time.
Now you're just being a cunt.
We broke it.
Hello, everyone. It's me,
There he is.
the Wayne Maker, the gobshite from across the pond.
Were you having
Hello.
some technical difficulties, my friend?
No, I was just trying to, beat you fuckers for trying to bet me that I couldn't stay silent for as long as I did.
No, it was while I was doing my talk that I'm going to do after this. You
Do it
started
then.
way too early.
Yeah.
Well, I have.
I'll go back to radio silence. It's fine.
No. We have to. No, we have to get through our daily banter. We need to know what you're drinking, mate.
I'm drinking Tribute Malbec from the Gun Pub. They donated one to me earlier because they knew I was doing the show, so they said, "Have one of these." I was like, "All right, thank you."
He stole it.
Donate.
Yeah, no one donates wine. You
Oh,
took
nice.
a
You
bottle.
snuck into the cellar. Come on.
You broke 4 windows. That's not
Uh,
donating, I think. It's that.
I liberated some wine.
Did you colonize a bottle of wine?
Ooh.
Did exactly what the British do wherever
they
they
do
go,
best.
all
Wow.
through Egypt, and
Yeah,
they just
Take the
say,
good stuff. Control
hey.
the language.
yeah.
That's why I call
"Put
it a
the flag
Malbec.
in for Queen and
Alright.
Country."
Queen and
Exactly.
corkscrew.
Yeah. Me and Lizzie.
This one's for you, Lizzie.
The old Gipper.
Hey, she survived, man. She's a survivor.
I always
Yeah.
find it weirdly unsettling when you call her Lizzie.
Because they're like this.
Oh, yeah.
I could
Brenna.
totally see Wayne pushing her chair in somewhere.
Yeah.
Brenna, what
Oh,
you been
hold
up
on.
to?
I'm glad you said chair.
We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Can we move the fuck on?
No.
We're trapped here. There's too many people.
This
Yes.
is what happens when you don't let Wayne talk.
All right,
Yeah.
go ahead, Brenna.
What do you want to know? No.
How's your week been?
What are you drinking?
I'm drinking some sparkling soda. I got like my favorite flavor, which is orange vanilla. Tastes like a 50-50 bar.
Ooh, nummy.
I've had kind of a calmish week, but I'm going to be in Vegas for 2 weeks because I'm helping with the ice of the Men's World's Curling Championship, which is going to be held at the Orleans. And so for the first week, it's all ice set up, and then for the second week, it's the tournament. So that's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a really cool kind of experience for me, and I get to be around not just like professional ice technicians, but also like the volunteers from across the country. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's international, so there's going to be teams from, let's see, there's Canada, there's
Mexico,
Mexico doesn't send theirs. America does, well, because we're hosting it, we get automatically qualified. We have Sweden, Norway, I
Russia.
believe South Korea. No, actually, Russia. They finally did it. They finally got rid of Russia.
Said Russia.
They actually, so a little bit of a controversy was that all these athletes were going to be under the, the like Russian Olympic Committee kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they were going to send their athletes, but they couldn't, represent. But then finally they made the good decision in cutting all Russian athletes out. And so for the women's, which is still going on right now, they couldn't find anybody to replace them. So they just left that spot blank. And so they actually ended up replacing for the men's tournament. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. You can see it on, I believe, ESPN will have it. Olympic Channel has it. And then Peacock TV has it. So you can go and you can watch it. And maybe you'll see a little glimpse of me in the background.
Brenna, if anybody else in the entire world told me that they were going to Vegas to be an ice technician for a curling camp for grown-ups, I would assume this would be code for something.
Oh,
And
wait.
and
Oh,
I would
the
and
eyes.
I would spend a lot of time trying to figure out what does that mean.
No, I just finished Breaking Bad. The ice. Isn't that right? Heisenberg.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
How blue is that ice?
It's
So-
specialized, actually.
That's a shitty
They have to-
question.
So before we get into, we are going to move on because we
Yeah.
have a lot of stuff to cover this week. But I've asked for, the first segment to be about me, which we all enjoy when I talk about me. And what I wanted to talk about is something that I found on the internet.
Oh no. Not the
And
internet.
I don't
The
like,
internet
I told you.
again.
I told you, Mikey. It's a
So,
terrible-
ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to meet Polina Kovaleva.
What up,
Okay.
Polina?
Polina is
Introduce yourself, Polina.
Polina is a 26-year-old glamorous Russian girl from London.
Okay.
She lives in a huge apartment in Kensington and loves to party. Her Instagram feed looks like a non-stop holiday. And that's not unheard of. But there is a small little detail. Polina is a stepdaughter of Russia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sergei Lavrov. Yes, that's Lavrov. He's one of Putin's closest allies, his lowest talking head, full of hot air, and now also a war criminal. Putin's cronies often have two families at the same time. Putin himself, while being married to Lyudmila Putina, had a second family with former gymnast Alina Kabeva. Minister of Defense Shoigu had two wives and two sets of children simultaneously, and Lavrov is no different. Lavrov has had the official wife for the last 50 years. No one has heard of her or seen them together in public in ages, though, as opposed to his lady Svetlana Polyakova, she's the actual wife, and they have been together since the early 2000s. Unlike Lavrov's official wife, that woman is loaded. She bought an apartment in Moscow worth between $6 and $8 million. In the picture, you can see Svetlana's little car collection,
Damn.
which isn't bad
Jesus.
for an unemployed lady.
Holy shit. How many
Christ.
Bentleys is that? Go back.
That is
Svetlana has accompanied Lavrov on every
back.
official foreign affairs trip. Sometimes she even takes her 78-year-old mother and her niece. The whole family are listed as members of the diplomatic mission. We found
God.
out that Polokasa has used the MFA plane more than 60 times. Our glamorous Londoner Polina is her daughter from a previous marriage. Here is the picture that Polina took at her mum's house in Moscow. There are portraits of Lavrov on the table. On the third shot, you can see Lavrov himself in the flesh behind that little chandelier. Polina's mum and Lavrov have been together for around 2 decades now. Polina's biological dad isn't super rich. She does not have an oligarch husband. By the age of 21, she bought this apartment in London on Kensington High Street for £4.4 million.
Wayne.
Oh my
She paid
God.
cash, no mortgage.
Yeah, this is Wayne.
Can anyone explain how this is possible? Her only source of money is her unemployed mother, who happens to be Lavrov's informal wife. This is a textbook example of unexplained wealth. The property can be legally seized right now. Lavrov even accused the UK of using chemical weapons twice. First time he claimed that the UK staged a Salisbury poisoning, and more recently, he publicly accused me of Maria Pavlikova for poisoning her boss, Navalny, when Novichok has requested the UK Secret Service, which he claimed he worked for. Lavrov gave numerous speeches about the evil Anglo-Saxon world and the awful liberal Western countries who wants to destroy Russia and Ukraine. So who on earth does his stepdaughter live in the centre of London? Why not in Crimea or Donbass? Why did she move here? And if you see on the bottom of the screen here, there's actually a caption on this picture that says, finally not an illegal immigrant anymore.
But Wayne made a couple of calls, got that
Paulina and her mom must be sanctioned. Paulina has to pack her Louis Vuitton suitcases, say goodbye to her British life, and leave the UK. Should she not be able to explain where she got £4.4 million from, her property must be arrested under the Unexplained Wealth Order procedure. This is a tweet thread written by Maria Pevchik. I'm probably slaughtering that name pretty badly. Today, she got all her wealth in the UK seized. Everything. Because of the organization that Maria Pevchik and they work for. These are people working within Russia, under fear of their lives, looking into the wealth of the oligarchs and their family, because they're hiding wealth with family members, and as we just saw, with their second wives and their mistresses and their kids.
Mm-hmm.
These people, we're going to link all of this, but you should really, really look into it. There's a YouTube video it's in Russian, but it's subtitled in English. You should really watch it, where they do all of these things. They follow the money and they find out where it is. And today it paid off. Together with 16 other Russian affiliated billionaires in the UK, Boris Johnson actually did a thing.
Wow.
He sanctioned them and he seized their wealth. So, Wayne, kudos. Your country did a thing.
An actual good thing.
Actual good thing. And that's my little story. That's what I wanted to tell you. That sanction, well, at least we don't have a 21-year-old Instagram model spending oligarch money in London anymore. And yeah, we also have the Italians seized a yacht outside that belonged to Putin outside the coast of Italy. The Norwegian.
Where does that stuff go?
It gets seized, and as soon as this conflict is over, it might be for war damages. It might be actually, sold for war damages, auctioned off to the highest bidder, and then it might go towards the country that they invaded.
So not going to give it to like Wayne or something. Like people in the country don't get to. It's not for the country. It's for the for or go back. Okay.
No. It's even though the international community cannot go into an English bank account without the consent of the English government. Only the English government can do that. So it's been seized by them, but it's only being managed by them until this conflict has been resolved, and not conflict. This invasion, this illegal seizure of land has been resolved, and then the international community, like we did after World War I and World War II, they divided up and they decide who gets the spoils of war, so to speak.
I'll sort it out. You need me to go into somebody's account? It's not a problem. Yeah. I got three screens.
So they do not get this money back. What about the people that are sanctioned to that from the United States or in the United States arena of banking and stuff? Do they also suffer that fate?
Sorry, my fiance just said you're not live, and I was like, yeah, we are.
Yeah, we're on Twitch.
I just looked at it. Yeah, we're on Twitch. I just looked at it. Yeah. Yep.
You didn't even set it up for her?
Wow. Wow. Does she have
No,
her
she
own
doesn't want to
account?
watch it because of the delay. She can hear me. Yeah.
Yeah, but we need the eyes.
Just turn her phone on anyway. Put it on mute.
Yeah. Yeah, we need the eyes.
Well, doesn't she want to hear us though?
Yeah.
Doesn't she want to hear us?
Så ni slutade för 19 minuter sedan.
No, we're live. Kolla länken jag skickade på sms till dig.
Ja, men vad den jag gjorde.
All right. Hey, so yeah, obviously on her phone we are not live, but on my phone we are.
Tell her to update Twitch.
Om jag följer länken till dig, då kommer jag till det där.
Well, anyway.
Can we all congratulate Wayne for being quiet for so very long?
You did a good job, Wayne. You did.
Good job, Wayne.
You
I miss hearing your voice, Wayne. I'm sorry, they're mean to you.
I never doubted you, Wayne.
Well, your time's expired, Wayne. You've won. You won the challenge. I lost.
So I thought that since this was in the British newspapers today, as soon as I mentioned the name, he would recognize it and then would just like, I know that, and then he would spoil the whole thing by saying they seized her shit today, and I was like, oh, dude, come on. I've actually spent some time preparing for this.
And minus points for Jartan for fucking looking up articles in someone else's country. That's kind of against the rules.
Yeah.
That goes to Wayne. You can't move my chess pieces for me and talk about some. I've won again. Well, yeah, it's cheating.
I was congratulating his absolutely horrible PM on actually doing something good for once.
I was just making a 6-foot barrier between all of his pieces and his king. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
don't worry, we are all as surprised as the Russians.
Like, wait, what? No, I guess.
And actually, we do have with us our Boris Johnson correspondent, Wayne Lynch. You're down there on the floor outside of 10 Baker Street. I don't know where.
Downing Street.
Wayne,
where my family was named after Downing. My mother's side when they immigrated.
Wayne from Downton Abbey. Dude is not going to talk throughout the entire show.
Where's his square? Where's his lordship square? Is that in Scotland?
Yeah, it's in Scotland.
Oh, when they succeed. It's gonna be rough.
Nothing from the Brit?
No, he doesn't want to talk.
Just dead air the whole time?
Kenny Omega's the greatest wrestler ever.
That look! The dead eyes.
Wayne can speak without speaking. I feel it.
Yeah, no, that is an eye roll up there with you and Jenna's eye rolls. You both also have like the most like, yeah.
Wayne's gonna go off.
Wayne, yeah. I hope we do that wrestling podcast together because the Young Bucks are the greatest tag team ever.
And
exactly. Who are you guys talking to? Are you guys talking to I Love Kenny Omega?
Yeah, we're all talking to I Love Kenny Omega. So, okay, but let's move into what we're actually here to talk about because, well, Mikey, you instigated this. No, actually, it was Wayne who said, I want to talk about this. No, it was Wayne. I said, I want to talk about this. Mikey, as always, orchestrated the whole thing. Wayne, why are all these people here? Oh, sorry, I Love Kenny Omega.
It was me. It was me.
It was I Love Kenny Omega. So,
yeah, that's kind of irrelevant to the subject matter at hand. Even though the twat wrestled an inflatable blow-up doll. So, yeah. Anyway, no, I want to talk about the swimmer that won a race that was, I think, 356th in the world as a man, and then as a woman has now become number 1 in the world. I don't think that this is correct. And I would like to get all of the panel's opinions on this, because we have gradations of separating sports people for abilities, and this one particular gradation has been quite literally transcended, and I don't think it's right, and it's not me being transphobic in any way, shape, or form. It's a case of if you're a heavyweight boxer and you go in against a flyweight, there's gonna be a result that's not gonna go too well for the flyweight. So that's my take on it. I would like to get the panel's opinion on how this has transpired and what they think of it.
A clarifying question, because I don't want to make this. I don't want to make this into the Inquisition of Wayne. Like, that's where I want to start off. Like, I get that these are honest questions. You just like wanted to have the discussion. On air is very risky.
It's brave
or foolish, depends on the outcome, right?
No. It's purely because I'm looking at the binary and then moving it into the grey and trying to figure out where we can find like a proper solution.
Because you've presented this in a way that kind of doesn't really serve your purpose. Because you started off like, oh, well, in certain sports there's weight classes. Is there a weight class for swimming?
No, but there are certain criteria that you need to fulfill to compete in certain sports.
Well, but here I think that one of the points that I can sort of extrapolate, and it's this is a place that I live, which is that I feel like what's happening is what's being revealed, gender is not a great sorting factor for these things, because it's not like you think about it, and you know what defines a woman. Like, is it breasts? But women, have them removed for a number of reasons. Is it ovaries? Those get, is it having a baby? Lots of women don't have babies. They have hysterectomies. What is it that makes a man? Is it like their ability to lift things? Some men can't. There's so much that's lumped into this, and it's a lazy way of separating things out. And then it gets weaponized, and people get shamed or diminished for expressing who they are or identifying where they fit in the gender spectrum and what feels like their truth and how they are. But then they're told, these horrible things, right? And it's not helpful. And it's like there's a kindergarten teacher in the Midwest who a few years ago said, instead of telling her kids to line up based on boys and girls, she started saying, line up if you like chocolate ice cream more than vanilla pudding, or and then she had the kids making their choices around other things and moved away from gender being a sorting factor, because it's really not helpful. And so when I hear you say that, like just from that one thing, and it's something I've been thinking about with regards to sports and many things. It just isn't helpful. Your gender, it doesn't really have a lot to do with that.
May I for a response?
Yes, please.
First of all, I would prefer if we got our information correct. She is not the world record holder. She's 30 seconds off of the world's record.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, I didn't say. It was
you did say world record.
No, I said ranked number 1 in the class.
In her level of competition.
Yes.
There's lots of different levels of competition.
Yes.
Okay. I was a swimmer, by the way. Secondly, the amount of time between when she took all these time trials as a pre-transition person and now have been spaced out by years of training. Okay, so of course they're going to get better.
Yeah.
Thirdly, all her teammates are perfectly comfortable with her. So what's the beef?
I think the beef for me is the information that I have been fed, in the sense of I know that it's not something that I don't follow swimming, and all I can see is they published this stat here to this stat here, which is massively skewed, and that's all I can go on as someone who doesn't follow swimming. So I'm being reactionary to the information that I've been fed.
Okay, fair enough.
But what I'm kind of trying to suggest is that maybe we should have a new class, a bit like in bodybuilding, you have untested and tested. Sorry.
Okay, I really want to counter that right away.
Yeah, go on.
Why should there be a new class? Okay, so we have this transgender person who happened to do very well in her sport this year. What about the 25 years prior to this, where transgender people were allowed to compete and not one got even close? So what? A trans person does well, so now everybody's upset about it? Everybody who's never been involved in women's sport is now suddenly concerned?
It's not a matter of being upset. It's a matter of kind of addressing it. So that's
what to address? There was no need to address it before. Why is there suddenly a need to do it now? Because she did well?
Okay, well, to flip that on its head, and I'm not trying to do whataboutery. There was there's a transgender UFC fighter who smacked the granny out of a female, and like a non-transgender female, and properly messed her up.
So at the risk of sounding annoying, I would be very careful with your pronoun choices. This is merely a helping thing, so that going forward you just kind of say like cis woman or trans woman, just so that it's easier to understand in an audio format, so people can't. You know what I'm saying? Just so that it's easier so that you're clearly understood.
Yeah, and Mikey, this is new to me, and this is something that we're all trying to learn together, and like speaking to Chaos over the years has, you know, woken me up to certain things, certain traits that I have that are not really conducive to a good conversation about this particular subject. So I appreciate that, and I'm trying to, you know, tread through this minefield, and I'm trying to learn. I'm always trying to learn.
Can I throw in my 2 cents about what's been said so far?
Yes, please.
So to quickly address the MMA thing a minute, you may be thinking of a different instance, but there was actually an instance where a trans MMA fighter got the crap beaten out of them by a larger cis woman. And because there was a trans woman in the fight, everyone assumed it was the larger one, and lots of places incorrectly reported that the trans woman won the fight. And the other thing I would note is that in kind of more generic sports terms, and I'm happy to focus more on swimming in a minute, if you want me to, but like in generic sports terms, someone being trans and having medically transitioned, when people talk about there being trans people having an advantage, statistically speaking, it is a smaller advantage than for people with other medical conditions to whom there are no restrictions, like cis women with polycystic ovary syndrome who have an increased testosterone level.
Yeah.
And so I find it to be a really common misconception that I don't know if you're holding, Wayne, but I think it's worth clarifying first, that a lot of the time when people talk about trans women in sports, they have this idea that trans women who are allowed to interact in sporting worlds have the body of a cis man, so to speak, which, while I think there's still weird sexist issues in relation to that, and people having overinflated ideas of how much of a difference there is there, fundamentally, a woman who is trans has worse odds statistically than a cis woman who has polycystic ovary syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and I'll say that
after you.
go ahead.
No, you first, and then me.
So I've been working started in 2001 in trans advocacy and trans rights, and so one of the things that I found to be very important that often gets overlooked is a person who is transitioning has to do sort of their own gender inventory and conceive of who they are and what their gender is and their gender identity and their gender expression and how that interacts with their worldview and their life. And people who are cis don't tend to do that. And so they put their discomfort with all of that onto trans people. And then what happens is, like what Chaos was talking about, and Jenni, like something this comes up, and all of those stories we've been fed about what male and female are and what that's supposed to be, all of those show up and they're under the surface, and then they get externalized onto a woman who just won a competition. And the first step actually would be for the cis folks to do their own gender inventory, to comprehend themselves in terms of their gender identity, their gender expression, the assumptions that they make about what it means to be male and female, why they buy into that. It's a lot of work. It's very worth it. And the reality is that it's not fair, right? Like, it's not fair that it gets put out in that direction instead of being taken on by the rest of us, right? And I wouldn't necessarily say I'm fully cis, but for the purposes of this conversation, I think that's an appropriate place for me to land. And it, you know, so that's, I just put that out there, that there's like a lot of that. And one of the things that, you know, is really painful to me around it is, you know, we weaponize identity, we weaponize feminine and masculinity, we weaponize medical facts, or not facts, myths. They used to believe that a woman, if she ran too fast, her uterus would fall out. Like, doctors actually said that. That's in a medical journal. And it's obviously complete 100% not true. And that's been used to keep people, all people, cis and trans, male and female, limited in their expression. So finding ways to comprehend your gender experience, and I think personally would probably help with a lot of these conversations.
And I'm going to start off by saying I am a cisgender, heterosexual man. I prefer the pronouns he and him. And I'm a total beginner on this. Give me a second. Mamma sitter i vardagsrummet. And it's probably because I'm not interested in sports at all. I don't understand why such an important issue is, why sport is so important to people who wins an MMA fight or who wins. Like, I couldn't care less, right? If it's cis or trans or I just couldn't care less. I think it's sad that we're using so unimportant things to discuss such an important issue. I feel like this is sort of the discussion that they had about bathrooms. Like, we can't have, you know, trans people running into these bathrooms all the time. And I'm like, why would that be a problem? Because I've been to a lot of men's bathrooms with a lot of other men over the last 40 years, and nobody's just swung out their willy and started like waving it around. And I've talked, all the women I've talked to, they've never had somebody running around showing their genitalia around the bathroom. So why would this change? Why would that behavior change if we just say, gender-neutral bathrooms. I don't get it. Why would you think that just genitalia would be flying off the walls? Why would that be all of a sudden a thing? Because it's never been a thing.
I have an interesting anecdote to throw in on that. I have never been in a women's restroom, lounge, whatever you want to call it, locker room, training center, where a woman has danced around showing off her genitals, okay, or even done much of walking around without a towel. I have seen that dozens of times in a men's locker room, dozens, okay? Not you guys specifically, but there's a lot of people who, like Aicila said at the beginning, that take all their own personal lack of knowledge and lack of understanding and project it onto the situation inappropriately. And that's a lot of what's going on here. This topic did not come up until after the bathroom discussions went on. Where did the bathroom discussions start? Do any of you know?
I have no idea.
The bathroom discussion started because somebody wrote an article that proposed the trouble that trans people in a bathroom would be, and how dangerous they would be to women, to children, all these kinds of things. And it took off from there. Now, a couple of years ago, somebody went back and checked out these guys who wrote this article. Guess what they said? They said, "Oh, well, we wrote all that just because we knew it would be something that got people scared and angry, even though it's not true." They did it purely for political purposes, and they've started an entire movement of hate globally. One group of people, one guy basically, wrote some lies, and it took off because it was fear-based, and it made people scared and angry.
And that was why I brought it up, because I feel like this is the same thing. It's taking the eye of the actual ball of the discussion about trans rights, and now we're talking about who wins medals or who swims faster or who runs faster. Like, that's important in any metric at all. Nobody?
I didn't think it was my turn to talk.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was my turn to talk or not.
I'm just keeping my mouth shut because I could dominate this.
Well, no, that's why you're here.
You should. That's why you're here, because I need to learn about this stuff.
There's a number of people here who I have great respect for them and their intelligence, and I think what they have to say is just as important as anything I have to say. So I'd like to hear them too.
Okay, so she's not talking about me, so I'm out.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, isn't this just a David Copperfield distraction? Look over here at this, so you don't see what we're doing over here to that.
Yes.
We should talk about this.
But it's working.
And that's what infuriates me, because people get upset about sports, and it's not important, and I couldn't care less. I want to see transgender people have the same rights as everyone fucking else. Do
you know what this has warped itself to in the American political arena?
Please. Talk about Texas?
The people of Texas are ready and waiting to put parents of trans children in jail for life, okay, and doctors in jail for life for treating trans children, and other states are beginning to copy that.
No, but let's not talk about that. Let's talk about sports. That's much more important.
Right?
Well, you were talking about why are we talking about sports when the other things are going on?
Yeah.
Well, this is what's going on that's even more important than sports.
Yes, perfect example of what I was talking about. So, tell me how they are reasoning that proposal, or whatever it is.
They're using the same base lies that have been created by the GC, the Gender Critical Movement of the UK. Okay? This group is a group that's based on hate, purely of hate of transgender people. And they
The
have
things
made up
that-
all kinds of lies, including ridiculous things about trans people are rapists, trans people are pedophiles, and things that are not true. Whatever they can pull out that scares the fuck out of people. Use my language.
To address that, that's the exact same tactic they used to use about gays in the 60s and 70s. Like, it was like illegal to
Yes.
be gay in the UK up until I think 1974, and they always used like that. They always kind of like put, oh, if you're gay, you must be a nonce. And they always use that. Like, if you look at the most successful films from the UK media, was the Carry On films. Half of those that cast were gay, and yet they were lauded in British sort of establishment. Yet everything that came out was like, oh, they're gay. They must be a nonce. No, it's a load of bollocks. And the same thing with trans. If you want to use our bathroom, you're trying to get our kids. No, you're fucking not. Shut the fuck up, wind your necks in, and like actually look at the facts. The fact of the matter is, there are people that are trans. There are people that are gay. We are all just cracking on in this world, but we're trying to understand each other. But these ghouls in the media are just trying to demonise people that are different. And that is the biggest problem. And we're all susceptible to the propaganda that comes out. And unfortunately, we have a right-wing media that is strident in perpetuating this, and it colours the general populace's mentality. And this is what we need to battle. We need to get through it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm susceptible to propaganda. I'm not sitting here saying that I'm not. All I'm trying to do is
arrested.
Yeah, we all are. There was a cop.
Yeah, there was a cop driving by
about
saying,
to
"I'm
get
like,
arrested."
Jenni's getting arrested."
Yeah.
Listen, there's only 2 cops in this neighborhood, and I know them, or this town, and I
Nice.
know them both. We're okay.
Wayne just. Oh, okay.
Sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, like, we're all susceptible to propaganda. You're correct, and the reality is, we think the things that are happening are kind of eternal. Like, for example, red. What is it? Pink is girls, and red or blue is boys. Except in the turn of the century, they didn't want boys to wear red. Because right, like, and little kids used to actually just wear little white dresses. And the reason that we gender our children is because the clothing industry figured out that if they could sell gendered clothing, they could sell more clothes. So half of this is about money, half of it's about power, and half of it's about stupidity, which leads to more than a whole. But it's a real problem.
In fact, boys were supposed to wear pink back in the day before they flipped it, because it was meant to be a regal colour. So
and red was too angry or something like that. It's ridiculous, right?
But okay, so here's an actual, and I'm actually curious about this. Might be a stupid question, and I recognize that. And I just realized, Chaos, I might have been dead naming you. I might have when I introduced you. I don't really know if I did. I didn't mean to. But I'm really sorry. My question is, why do cisgender women feel so threatened by transgender women?
Cisgendered women don't feel threatened by transgender women. An extremely small minority of radically insane feminists in the UK are afraid of trans women.
So
in Sweden as well. No, I have to say, in Sweden as well, there has been a feminist uprising against transgender women, and they are super loud.
Karens.
Yeah, the highest number I have ever seen of like a percentage of cisgender people in a poll who expressed concern about trans people, specifically trans women, because trans men always get ignored in this. But it was something like 56%, I think it was. But here's the thing: is that only something like, I think it was either 36 or 42% of that was women. Like, more men are concerned about trans women going into women's bathrooms than women are. And a lot of the women who are concerned about it, it's because they've seen this propaganda of trans women doing terrible things, which, yeah, they're awful. These things that these trans women do are terrible. But these trans people don't exist. These are fake trans people. Like, these are imaginary people who've been made up for a story of, like, oh, but trans women will go into bathrooms and peek under your stalls because that's something that only assigned male at birth people can do for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that whenever I go into the bathroom, the door opens because there's a magic vagina detector. And as soon as it detects my vagina, it opens up and suddenly I'm in there. I mean, what on earth is this about?
This is what you men are not figuring out, but this is true.
I've been using the women's room for 40 years. And it's only been in the last few that this has become an issue.
Right?
I thought women just licked their thumb and then there was like a special tile that you would press and it would do like the DNA thing and then let you proceed.
The women's restroom is a magical place.
This is the thing.
Beautiful.
It's filthy. It's nasty. Women are the worst in restrooms. Y'all tear that shit up.
Mikey,
so bad.
Mikey, this is why women always go to the bathroom. They need somebody to confirm. You know, it's like the submarine keys at the same time. It's 3, 2, 1, and then the portal goes up, and then you can go through the vagina and things like that. Yes.
Exactly.
You know, Jartan, when you're right, you're right.
This is where they got the plot for the Hunt for Red October.
Yeah.
Oh, gross.
Yeah.
Wayne, boo.
Back to
Okay.
Back to the original subject, though. As I said earlier, the discussion about trans women in sports or trans children in sports is based off the same lies and manipulated lack of facts that these people have. The fantasies that they create around this fear and paranoia that they have about trans people. They're writing laws against trans kids in sports and in life based on these lies. They're saying things like no child may have genital surgery before they're 18. Well, no one does. No one ever has. You know? It's just where did you get this from? They got it from Grand Linehan. They're operating out of mythology and the intent to frighten everybody, and it extends in the athletic field. There is absolute truth and proven facts that when a young boy, say 8, 9, 10, 11, professes to be trans, and they get their therapy and some counseling and stuff, and it's decided when they reach the age of like 12 or 13 that this kid is legitimately trans, they put them on puberty blockers. The puberty blockers prevent their primary hormone from wrecking their body and destroying their body, whether that's the male hormone or the female hormones. Okay, it happens on both sides. And then, when they reach the age of 16, they would be allowed, by the ethics of the medical people who provide the services, to have hormones, because it's believed at 16-year-old they can make their own decisions. But then they still have to wait till they're 18 if they want any kind of surgery. The system is designed to protect the children. It's designed to protect the adults that go through it. Okay.
A note I would make there about the hormone blockers as well is that the only long-term side effect that has been found in them is an extremely minor calcium deficiency. So when people talk about, how it's going to ruin a child's body to have hormone blockers, that's also incorrect. And that's a really common point there, and I just wanted to clarify it before you went on, Jenny.
I take one of the drugs that's used as a puberty blocker, a spironolactone. I take it because I have a heart condition. Okay, and that's what it has been used for generations as a heart medication. It's a well-known medication. How it works, what it does. It's used on young girls who are suffering from precocious puberty, where these are girls who are like 10, 11, who are starting to have their cycle. That there's no way that they're old enough to have that happen, so they delay it, and they use a puberty blocker like that to help.
I have one comment here from the chat. My phone screen. There we go. I think it's just the ultra-religious people who feel that their opinions are the only ones that matter, and that's from Hammer09.
I don't disagree.
But ultra-religious people just want the status quo to maintain the status quo. And whatever you may be, whether it be, I mean, look at the pictorial version of Jesus in the common parlance is a white, blue-eyed guy with sort of like dusty blonde hair, when in reality, like, he was a geezer from Palestine. Have a word with yourselves.
But I have an inquiry, and this is both to Chaos and Jenny. And I'm going to start with Jenny. So you said you transitioned around 1979, is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's about when Wayne got his second hip replacement.
Oh, fuck off.
But
you are 40 this year, you absolute melon.
Look, I got 4 months to go before I'm as old as you.
Oh, I am going to set off fireworks.
Yes, you are. But how did people talk about this? How did the media handle it back in 1979?
Well, they didn't.
Right.
It was pretty much off the radar of the general public. When we went to programs, we were in therapy. We started our hormone therapy, and we began to live our lives as our true selves, and we just kind of blended into the background. And nobody cared. Okay, and those who did care were like unusual, because you weren't out there broadcasting that you're trans. It is different today. Kids are not afraid of saying they're trans in public and that sort of thing. Because back then, you got beat to a pulp by anybody, cops, citizens, all sorts of people would just hurt you physically badly back in those days. It was dangerous to be trans.
So you kept it on the down low?
I'm sorry, say?
So you kept it on the down low? You kept it quiet?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you move cities, or
no? I stayed in the same city. I stayed in the same job. Stayed at the same college. Of course, I got fired from the job. My family disowned me, and the college said, "We're not going to change your records." But I still stayed there, and I continued to be there until only a few years ago when I moved here.
Jenny, now before the show, you said there was no question off limit or anything like that, and I'm going to try and be as PC as I can be. Now, so you said you just became trans in 1979. Is that correct?
The quick answer. The quick answer is yes, but when we're done, I want to talk about the terminology.
No, mate. I am trying to kind of get my head around this, because it's all.
And you're doing really good.
Yeah, I'm doing my best. But with regards to sort of like pre-op, post-op kind of stuff, what is the motivation for the op? Is it just kind of like you want to be full female, or is it?
That's up to you to answer, Jenny.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a curiosity.
Okay, and this gets into the thing about terminology I wanted to mention.
Yeah,
I didn't in 1979. I didn't become transgender. I was born transgender.
Thank
In
you.
1979, I decided to deal with it instead of killing myself. Okay. I didn't become a woman. I stopped pretending to be a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And as far as for me, bottom surgery was, yes, I had no interest in having appendages that I loathed.
That's what I was trying to get at. But I was very clumsy in my wording. I'm trying to sort of like get to the nitty gritty, but I don't have the vocabulary to word it in the appropriate way. So that's
there's a whole lot of folks that do not choose to get the bottom surgery, and they do that because of sometimes fear of surgery, sometimes because they medically cannot get it, say they have kidney disease or something, because they can't financially afford it. It's ungodly expensive. Because of safety concerns, they live in a place in town where if this gets out that they're trans, they're going to be murdered. Right. Okay. Yeah. So there's lots of reasons why people don't get it, but for people who do, they're doing it because it is becoming their true selves.
Yeah. Mikey, I'm sorry.
I wasn't quite.
Sorry, I just want to say, Mikey, sorry if that came across as bumpy, but I didn't know however to word it.
I'm sorry. And just as a broad disclaimer for everyone out there, if you have trans friends, maybe that's not something you ask them, because if you can think of any time that they've asked you about your genitalia, it's the same thing except even more private. So,
Mikey, I should mention to the chat, before the show, I told these people here that they can ask me absolutely anything they want because they can't scare me.
Right.
They can't. Everything they could ask, I've been asked before.
Right. And that's why I put it out there. That's
you don't have to defend yourself. I'm not attacking you. I'm just
I'm just letting the chat know where everybody's coming from, why they can do that.
Yeah, no, but Jenny, I can relax you by saying that my penis has been the subject of this podcast for about 20 episodes. It was a very long and arduous journey for all.
Is everybody's penis and genitalia on the table?
Sorry.
Because
no, just Shartan.
Just Shartan.
Sorry, Shartan. Stormy Daniels was talking about your genitalia the other day on Jimmy Fallon.
Well, it was small and kind of cheese doodle-like.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here we are.
Okay. No,
welcome back to the Big Podcast.
Yeah, so, the HR bot.
Someone needs to do the sexual harassment training.
Yeah.
That we become better.
Well, yeah, you got to be better at that.
Yeah, this is quite interesting. And, of course, Jenny and Chaos and Aicila, at any point that I mess up, telling me that I mess up is totally fine because I fucking mess up a lot. I use wrong pronouns.
No comment.
No, I do, and I recognize it.
It wasn't a comment saying, what's our friend from Bicurean Podcast? Can you pronounce her name one more time?
Aicila.
Said was hilarious.
Yeah.
Aicila.
Aicila. All right. Aicila.
Yeah. Zeta.
Aicila. Bicurean.
I was about to say Alicia, then I realized it was wrong, and I was like, Aicila? All right. But there you go. Telling me that I fuck up, I don't mind. I can take it. Tell me when I'm doing wrong, because that's the only way that I can improve myself and do better.
Okay, what you're doing wrong right now is belaboring the point.
Yes,
well played.
Chaos, same question to you, except for you transition a lot later.
Yeah. So the context for my transition is I am like 100% socially transitioned, with the exception of like changing my legal name and stuff. But medically speaking, I am not transitioned, because I'm currently in the waiting queue to see a gender identity clinic, and the waiting time is at least a decade.
What?
So yeah, I'm not expecting to get gender affirming healthcare unless I like come into some money or something until I am at least in my 30s.
Are you okay with telling people how old you are now?
Yeah, thanks for telling us how young you are.
I am at the least until next month 19.
I hate you for all the right reasons.
Yeah, fuck you, Chaos. Your knees probably work.
Funnily enough, they don't, because I have chronic illness. Yay! But I am always the baby of the streams.
Yeah.
And
I'm always the geezer.
You could probably just roll out of bed and your back doesn't just snap 37 different ways.
I
you
live
remember
on,
shit.
I live on Turf Island. And
Turf Island?
so-
Oh my god.
yeah.
Oh my god! Who knew
I am so sorry.
That is how it is known in this community.
It is.
Turf Island.
But yeah, because I live on Turf Island and because I grew up in like an uber religious cult where I was screamed at that them LGBTs are the devil incarnate, I was in fact a little bit scared to come out. In fact, I waited till I'd moved out of my mum's house to come out to her, and I privately came out to like friends and the LGBT youth group that I used to go to in private and that sort of stuff. And I came out to them when I was like, I think 17. I was out to myself at like 15, 16. And my social transition has looked very much like getting everyone to use my right name and pronouns, which is a pain in the ass. And getting a better sense of style and actually buying some women's clothes. And I'm non-binary, so it makes things a bit weird and complicated for me. But where my medical transition will be going when I can eventually get it is going to be primarily what's considered to be like standard trans woman HRT, but slightly less of it than would be a normal dosage for someone my weight, so as to keep a certain level of androgyny. And because I don't have any dysphoria around it, I don't see any need to get bottom surgery.
Is that sorry, Chaos? Is that and Jenny? Is that the considered term bottom surgery when it comes to
genital for trans women? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's something I've learned today. So I'm grateful for that because I don't want to again. This is a learning thing.
You should know there's also variations on that. Some people only choose to have an oreectomy, which is castration, and other people choose to go all the way, which is me. So there are variations in that as well.
Okay, no, that's helpful to know.
Chaos, can you just clarify? So, standard is not included the bottom surgery, you call it.
So there is standard hormones, and then there is standard surgery. Most trans people I know want surgery, but even under the NHS, a lot of them can't afford it. I have a friend who is getting his testosterone through the NHS, and top surgery for him to have his chest removed is going to be a surgery that, unless he can like actively get funding because he doesn't get much dysphoria from it, is going to cost him $10,000.
That's expensive.
In terms of costs in 1970s and 1980s dollars, my entire transition cost me probably about $150,000.
Whoa!
Being trans is expensive. Do you want to be trans or have a house?
So when the TERFs start screaming about, oh, we're doing this just so that we can go into bathrooms and harass women, it's like, I spent 150 grand to just go into bathrooms. What?
Well, you needed the magic vagina.
Insane.
You couldn't get in otherwise,
Right.
because men literally can't get in a women's room if they don't have the magic vagina.
Unless you have cleaning supplies, and then the door will open for you, but only
There's
for
that.
5 minutes.
See, it's knowing people like yourself, Jenny, and Chaos, that infuriates me so much when these arguments come up on like talk radio, and it's like, oh, they're going to try and walk into our bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Are you having a fucking laugh? I would punch that person in the mouth and let that.
I've never been arrested. I was a property owner. I had a career. I was nationally known in my business. But I'm going to go into bathrooms and harass women. Yeah, okay.
Not only that, I'm going to cut my genitalia off because I want to get better at a sport that I really suck at. Like, what? No.
Would you like some grisly details?
Yeah, no.
They don't cut your genitalia off. They
turn it inside out and tuck
they
it
turn
up.
them inside out and refashion everything down there.
Yeah. All for
I feel a lot better now.
All for a sit down wee. That's it.
So, Aicila, you had something you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, so one of the things that when I was more actively working in activism that I think is important to make a distinction around is the stigma that people face. So that trans people or gay people or people of color or women face around certain things is the issue. It's not their identity. And I feel like it's very important to make that distinction because a lot of times we'll talk about things and we'll talk about how someone and reinsert their identity and that identity becomes a focus of the problem. And it's actually not. The identity is that, trans people are, they have to go through their process, but they're fine. What's not fine is the way the world treats them, the way they have to justify themselves, and the way they could, what Jenny was saying, could be murdered. Let's be clear. It's still legal to use gay or trans panic as a defense for killing someone in the United States. So you could be like, oh, I panicked to get trans and kill them. And that's legal.
Wait, no.
Hold up.
Yeah, that is a legal defense.
I'm
not kidding.
No, but how would you go?
Well, if you murder someone, which haven't done, so and they were gay or trans, then and you go to court, you'd be like, well, they were gay. I panicked, and that's why I killed them.
They were trying to gay me.
Yeah.
No,
so they
no.
If you claim that.
It's I'm sorry, it's real.
Chaos, go on.
There is the caveat that it has to be specifically if they hit on you and it made you uncomfortable because they were gay or trans, then you can murder them.
Well, if you think but you could decide they were because they were talking to you, right? Like it's not.
Oh yeah, you can totally like the definition of hitting on is.
I could establish a relationship with one of you guys. We could be dating for 6 months, 12 months. You know I'm trans all that time, and then we go have sex, and you panic at the end of it and murder me, and you'd get off in it.
Yep.
All right, Jenny, get in my DMs. I'm getting a bit lively.
Yeah, and so I know it sounds like semantics, and it's something that we actually actively worked with funders on because it's when you create the idea that who someone is the problem. And you talk about it that way, you make them responsible for it. And actually, trans people are not responsible for the way they're being treated. It's a community problem. They bear the brunt of it. And they're the ones that have to constantly step up and deal. And they're the ones that have to deal with gay panic and trans, all of this. And so when we move it and we talk about stigma and we move it to, this is a community issue. They bear the brunt. It's not fair. So that's why we want to do things like create laws or affirmative action, because these different populations bear the brunt of the stigma. The stigma is the issue, and the community needs to come together and deal with it and take care of the people who are facing the biggest part of the problem. And so that to me, that's a really important thing to remember, because I feel like, especially we worked a lot with youth, and they would take that on, like that they were somehow bad because, they were gay or trans and they were getting treated badly. It's like, no, you're perfect. There's nothing wrong with you. These people around you are behaving very badly because they're confused about how this all works. And we're going to do what we can to support you. And I feel like adults deserve the same care and respect. So I just, that's for what it's worth, I want to put that out there as an option to
40% of trans children will attempt or succeed in suicide.
That's
40%.
That's grim.
And that I will add that number is really underrepresented because so many of us are concerned about like upping that statistic. I've known people who participated in those studies who've turned around to me and said, "Oh no, I lied on that study and said I'd never attempted suicide when I totally have. You know that."
Can I also add to that, Chaos, that I think that because of the stigma of being trans and people who start to realize that they are kill themselves because they are, and nobody knows that these thoughts have, existed within them, so they don't get in the statistic because they lived a cisgender life their entire lives, and then they realize, oh shit, I've been doing this wrong, and then they start realizing, and once they come up to that, they go like, no, I can't go through with this. I might as well, end my life, and nobody knows why.
Zlatan, you're 100% right, because the thing is, if someone is closeted in any way, shape, or form, and they end their life because of that, it's not a recorded statistic because they're considered cis. So yeah, you're 100% right in the skewing of figures.
I'm just saying that I think that there's a very dark number that is not in that statistic, and I think it's way higher than we think it is.
Yeah, definitely.
Both for the reason that Chaos said, the reason that I said. But now we come into the really difficult part about having this discussion, and I want to know, how do we move forward? And I want to start at the other end. I want to ask Chaos first. How do we move forward? How do we change? What can we do? Because can
we let Tim go real quick and then kind of...
Yeah, shit, fuck. I forgot about you, Tim. My bad. Shit. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm still here. It's fine.
I love you, Tim. No one else does.
So while y'all were discussing, I was looking up some academic studies on acceptance of transgender athletes, and there aren't many. There's actually very few. But I did find one from 2020 where they interviewed a bunch of Japanese university student athletes, and this is once again, this is one of the few studies that has been done. And they found a few things out. Trans athletes are accepted more in recreational sports than elite competitions. And the way that they did this out was like, trans athletes are most accepted in unofficial versions of sports. So local baseball leagues and stuff like that. And the more official the sport is, the less transgender athletes are accepted into that sport. Say the Olympics being the most prestigious version of sports for the most part. They're least accepted there, but on community levels, there are greater levels of acceptance.
Does your information show you that the Olympics was the first major body that approved transgender people for competition?
Yes, and it also said that a lot of official levels of sports take their guidance from the International Olympic Committee. But once again, the Olympics is just an example. Like any major sport organization, the bigger it is, generally, the less accepting of trans athletes they are. The other thing that the study found was that trans women are less accepted in sports than trans men. And once again, this is just one research study. It's not indicative of everything. And the study itself mentions how little research is actually done. And there was one other thing that I wanted to note from the study. It said that hormone treatment is one of the key elements of determining acceptance. Trans athletes that undergo hormone treatment are more accepted than ones who don't.
I don't know that anybody allows a transgender athlete to compete if they are not on hormones.
And that was one of the things they mentioned, that like official sports organizations have testing requirements for trans athletes on different kinds of hormones, and if they don't meet those requirements, they're not allowed into the organization. I think those are the major things from the study. But if you want, I can post it in the chat and people can read it for themselves, because it was published in a sports journal, so it's like an official journal article, and it's peer reviewed.
Yeah, stick it in the chat, mate.
Would anybody care for an anecdote about what hormones do to strength?
Yeah, massively.
Okay. As I mentioned earlier, I was a swimmer. This is, back in high school and early college kind of stuff. I was not a great swimmer, okay? I was completely average, but I still stuck to it for years. In those days, I could deadlift almost 400 pounds, okay? After hormones, these days, I cannot even do 100 pounds. That's the end of the anecdote. Okay, it's a dramatic change in your strength. Doesn't matter how broad your shoulders are. Doesn't matter how much muscle it appears that your biceps have or whatever. You just don't have the strength anymore.
I would eventually like to get into blacksmithing, and getting into blacksmithing when I start E actually makes me kind of nervous.
And one final thing about the study, it does say in the conclusion that while a lot of the efforts to accept or not accept transgender athletes is about fairness in the sport, that they hope that the study would encourage sports to be more accepting of transgender athletes and to find ways of policy-wise of doing so. And that they hope that there would be a greater push for better ethics in the sports.
Because my biggest argument, whenever they would, those people would complain about trans women athletes, I'm like, oh, so they're all undefeated? Oh no, they lost a bunch of so they finally won after losing 800 matches in a row. Oh, okay. Oh, what's that? They've lost since they won. Oh, so kind of sounds like it's fair. Kind of seems like you kind of blew that whole thing up because they finally won one.
Yeah, and
like me and Tim play Halo all the time. Just because I have a good game, it doesn't mean that I have shattered the mold for Halo going forward.
He's definitely sucked on occasion. He's definitely sucked on occasion.
Oh, I've definitely had a good 3-29 game where I'm like, I'm really high and stoned, but I'm really good too, and I can do that. And I do terrible. Like, it's not because I'm playing Halo, I automatically beat everybody possible. Not how it works. It's still a competition. Everyone's got a chance.
Yeah, and on my show, we were considering talking about this topic as well. Nolan and I were having a conversation about it, and we've reached pretty much the same conclusion. It's, there is an argument to be made for fairness in sports, but the policies that some of the sports organizations adapt when it comes to transgender athletes is not an appropriate level of acceptance.
Right.
And there's a lot of tightrope walking policy-wise that has to be done, and there needs to be a push for transgender athletes not to feel marginalized, and there needs to be a push for making sure that their feelings and what they want to be done is also considered, because it's not just about, oh well, this transgender athlete beat out all these other people, but yeah, but they also lost a bunch. Like, you can't just put up the headlines and say, hey, this is what's going on. You got to look at the whole picture.
I think.
Go ahead, Cass.
I was just going to say that I think something interesting to note about like Wayne mentioned towards the beginning about the information he was given about this swimming thing in the first place is something that I find can be useful, is to kind of dissect the information we have and go, what is actually remarkable about this?
Right.
Like, is a trans person existing remarkable? Is a trans person existing in sports remarkable? Neither of these things are unusual. Is an athlete going from place 1,000 and something to having a gold medal in the Olympics remarkable? Well, not in Olympic terms. I'm pretty sure that ranking will have been held by a significant number of like gold medal athletes in the Olympics at some point in their lives. So which bit of that information is remarkable? And then when you put it all together, why does that suddenly seem bizarre and out of place?
Right now, I think there's a fair argument for us to look at this issue in sports. I didn't think when it initially was brought up that it was a valid thing to discuss, but obviously people want to, so I think it should proceed. But I think that's mostly because a lot of the people you see as adults nowadays who are transgender did not have the opportunity to transition until after their puberty. The children who begin blockers at 12, 13 years old and then start hormones at 16 are going to physiologically develop exactly as the gender that they are. Okay, not the one that were born as. Okay, the bone structure that they talk about, the muscle mass they talk about, the lung chain differences they talk about, the cardiac differences they talk about, are going to be exactly the same in those children after their avoidance of, well, since we're talking about trans women, avoidance of the male puberty, and then any other cis woman out there. You will not be able to tell. There's a strong feeling in the community that the biggest reason that they're fighting this is because they know that these children become so totally indistinguishable from cis women that they don't want to have them have that advantage, that they want to be able to tell by some marker or otherwise that they used to be male. Okay. Because virtually every trans woman does have some tell somewhere in her existence, but these kids, none.
Jenny, can I ask? So, are you kind of advocating for pre-pubescent medication?
Hormone blockers? Yes, absolutely. Only with a proper regime of psychotherapy with parental involvement.
I'm not sure I can get on board with that, because my a previous girlfriend of mine, she suffered from, that's a really bad word, Wayne, you absolute cunt. She had polycystic ovaries, which meant she was very tall and she was very hairy, very masculine in her physicality.
Yeah.
But she was just who she was. Now, if something had cropped up beforehand and like she was told, oh, you're going to suffer from this, and she was given those hormone blockers, it may have adjusted who she was. So are you advocating for just kind of hormone blockers for people that are not sure as to where their gender role is?
Okay, very fair question. The entire process of transition, when you are dealing with a a treatment community, medical, sociological, is designed with the intent to help the patient or client, however, what do you want to refer to them?
Recipient.
As to treat them so that they are able to examine what they're doing, understand what they're doing, and decide for themselves if it's the correct thing to do. And a lot of them, those children who are on the hormone blockers and stuff, decide, no, this is not correct for me. And then they say, bye. Okay? And they're out of the program. The program works. Okay? There are very few people who detransition once they have gotten into the transition process to a certain degree, especially after they've started HRT. There are some that it does happen to that do detransition. But when you interview these people and do a study on them, you find out that most of them is because other reasons, such as finance, such as safety, such as family issues, not whether or not they feel they're trans or should transition, but because of other interferences that are caused by society that makes them detransition.
So we're effectively on the genesis of trying to figure out where this whole issue is, whereas other established kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Roles or identities are already there. So we've got race, we've got religion, we've got gender, but now trans is the newest one, and we're just literally on the precipice of trying to figure out where it is, and we're trying to figure out the nuts and bolts of it. So we should be allowed to have, like, asking the questions.
And that's what science has been doing for the last 100 years.
Yeah.
I think that just because this has been debated a lot, it's been the misconception that this is a new thing, or it only came about lately, is quite common. But just because it's been recognized as a psychiatric disorder, and you can get treatment under gender dysphoria, gender dysphoria.
You're on a sticky wicket there, mate.
No, but
it's not considered a disorder. It's considered a condition.
A condition, sorry. Yes, but again, this is my third language. I will, as I said, I will make mistakes. I will make mistakes. A condition.
Fuck you for not knowing language.
I would, but it's a condition. It should be treated as any other condition. The way that I say it, it should be treated with medicines that way that you would treat anything else, and under the way I have healthcare and Wayne has healthcare, it shouldn't be a waiting queue of a decade as it is for chaos, which is just ridiculous.
Yes,
it should be, and conditions that children have in young age, we don't wait to treat those until they're of legal age, until they're 18. We don't wait to treat those conditions until they're 18. So why would we wait on this condition? I don't understand. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah,
You want to translate to those who haven't spoken to me for the last 7 years.
Because if it can be medically shown that people are suffering from gender dysphoria, then it should be covered under their health care.
Okay. When you have a child that is 8, 9, 10, 12, 11, 12, 13, and they're talking about to their parents that they think that they're a little girl, okay? They know themselves already. They've known themselves for years. When they approach puberty, they know what puberty is about. They know what's going to happen to them. They are absolutely terrified to go through male puberty. I was. I absolutely cursed the day when body hair started showing up and those sorts of things. Puberty is considered, in the community, it's considered torture because it destroys the child day by day as it progresses. By blocking the puberty and giving them time to assess, is this really the direction I need to be in? You save lives. These children kill themselves because they can't have treatment.
Mm-hmm.
If we have a way to keep kids from killing themselves, why don't we do it?
And that's what I'm saying. Like any other condition that causes these things to happen, we would treat them, right? We wouldn't wait until a certain age. We'd have, professionals on site to make sure we protect the child.
Well, and I do understand and appreciate that perspective, and there is a risk. And I also feel like it's important to say that the other thing that I see as a real issue is we don't treat kids with respect. They don't have rights. I don't know as much about other countries, but especially here in America. And I feel like if I'm going to be, I think probably after like 11 or 12, if a decision is being made that is going to affect the rest of their life, they ought to get a say in it. And I recognize that there's some spaces where there needs to be a process, like what Jenni was talking about with regards to trans kids. There's a process they go through that's overseen by medical professionals to make sure that they're getting actual like factual guidance, or as close to it as we hope. But it's bothersome to me that children are not, like, this is a decision, like you're saying, it affects you for the rest of your life. And yet, here we've got Texas trying to take that right away from parents who are trying to support their kids. But if you have parents that are not supportive, you're screwed. Even if you have parents that are supportive, it can be an impossibly difficult process. And it just seems to me like I do see understand the condition and the saving of lives is an important factor. But I also, when I was working in gay rights, people are like, it's not a choice. I'm like, who cares if it's a choice? The biggest protection you have in our country is your religious freedom. And that's absolutely a choice. If I want to choose who I spend my time with and they're my gender, I should get to do that if I get to choose who I worship as a god, and that should be protected. It shouldn't be like, oh, it's all bad. And I know there's bad things and that's why we talk about it, but I think there's more to the story than that.
If I could piggyback off that a second, that kind of is very closely linked to something I was going to say, which is that, like, what Zlatan and Jenni described is very much like a well-accepted thing within the trans community, as far as I can discern. But I would go one step further that isn't necessarily as well accepted, is the idea that there should be this very normalized idea of exploring gender for kids that are like prepubescent, but simply because there is more to gender than gender dysphoria, and that is a component. But reducing gender down to if you experience dysphoria very much leads to some of the issues that come out of trans medicalism, of people being like, oh, you can't be trans, you don't experience insert crippling level of dysphoria. Like, there is like then this threshold of you must be this disabled by your dysphoria to be trans. And that's not good for people who experience dysphoria, like one of my partners at the moment, actually, who experiences dysphoria, but not
greedy. One of your partners.
Yes, greedy, even though I share.
It's not greedy if it's sharing, Wayne.
Sharing is caring.
Well, maybe I want one.
It's all about the verbiage.
Mikey, keep Brenna and Jenna and Kristen out of this, yes?
I think I've found
I didn't say anything.
I think I found a way to snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat.
All right, Chaos, please.
Sorry, Chaos.
You're all good. So this partner of mine, they experience dysphoria, but it isn't as bad as mine. So when they were looking at my dysphoria, they were going, okay, but can I call myself trans? And I actively encourage them, like, no, you can call yourself trans. You are trans enough. Just because your dysphoria is less than mine, that comparison doesn't bear having. But there's also an additional component of that, which is aspects of gender outside of dysphoria completely. And the easy one to pick on is gender euphoria. I have known some trans guys, for example, who used to be very, like, they were girly because it's what their family accepted. And it didn't make them dysphoric per se. But the first time they tried on a suit, they were like, oh, I'm a guy. This feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so I think that while I think that conversation is super important and is super necessary to be had, I think that when the focus is solely on that, sometimes it gets taken away. And that's, again, like a more personal hot take of, like, just like all kids should be encouraged to at least understand, if not actively experiment with gender, to understand where they're at with those sorts of things and those concepts of gender outside of just dysphoria that gets talked about.
Okay, I'm gonna put it to the panel as a father of a 7-year-old and a 1-year-old. How do I define gender to my children in a progressive way? Because I am trying to raise them in the most progressive and most tolerant way possible. Even though there's a little kid at the school that I want to punch their dad's face in.
You don't sit them down for a lesson in transgender education. Okay, there's no such thing as birds and the bees for transgender folks.
No.
But what you can do.
That's what I'm asking.
But what you can do is, if and when the opportunity arises, because we only make up 0.5% of the population, so you may not run into a trans person in life. But if you do, if your child tugs on you when you're in the Piccadilly Square and says, "Why is that man wearing a dress?" Because kids are very good at picking up. We hate them. You don't answer them with something, well, because they're sick. Now, I don't think you ever would, but there are some people who would answer that way. But you take it as a teaching opportunity and you explain to them in simple child terms that there are some people who feel different inside than they look on the outside, and they can't help it, and this is how they live, and it's perfectly okay. And a kid will say, okay.
Can I just pull you up on a little bit of language you just used there? They can't help it. That kind of says they're a victim.
No, that says that they have a situation in them that is out of their control of their ego. It's a super ego kind of thing. It's deep inside. It's subconscious. You're not going to beat that.
No, but it was about they can't help it. I would. I'm not to criticize you. I would say that's just who they are. I wouldn't say they can't help it, because can't help it kind of suggests they are a victim of some kind of circumstance.
Well, they are.
Would that be fair to
well, I understand what you're saying, and I guess I kind of agree. If they're a victim of anything, they're a victim of some allele on their Y chromosome that produced something a little different than it should have.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, now, if you want to call that a victim, fine. I call it a condition that they can't do anything about, that they can't help it.
Okay. No.
For me, when you use the word victim, it sounds like a society is doing this to them, or somebody else is doing this to them. And victim just doesn't feel like the right word.
No. I mean, like, semantically, it's like you're saying that, and I don't agree that, when someone says they can't help it, it's kind of saying they shouldn't be doing that. That's why I kind of called it out on the semantic
So,
thing.
but okay, so Mikey's put us on a schedule. We got about 15 minutes left to go, Mikey.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Brenna, you've been uncharacteristically quiet this evening. Well, morning for you. Except for the 3 times you said I haven't said anything. You haven't said anything.
It's afternoon here, not morning. But
Brenna, hang on. Let me just Google Brenna.
Stop talking, Wayne.
yeah, this is why I don't talk a lot. Anyway, no, one of the reasons why I didn't want to talk is because there's so much good information coming, and it's beautiful. And so I have a question for the panel. It does include anybody who wants to chime in. I just recently was at the Doctor Who convention, Gallifrey one, very big one, wonderful. I've never been. I was so happy about it. I dressed up my first day. I dressed up as the 4th Doctor. The second day, I dressed up as a Dalek. I mean, I'm just like it was
nerd. Absolutely.
I knew I loved you.
It sounded like a lot of fun.
So
I have a question.
Sounds like hell.
What's is a Dalek the trash can looking thing?
Yes.
I'm going to get a scarf right now.
I have one downstairs too, Wayne.
The Daleks are like the Nazis, so that's what their parallels were. Anyway,
No, why would you dress up like them?
I love the Daleks.
They're Nazis in a bin.
I know exactly. Anyway, I was noticing something about being there, and you know, you get your tags, and you have the little flags that you can put like what your pronouns are, and some people had their own like specially made ones for them so that they could have exactly what they wanted to be called. It's very noticeable that the LGBTQA+ community is very accepted in this nerd society, in the science fiction, in the fantasy, horror, video game, role playing. All this stuff just seems to be very, almost so accepting of everybody, regardless of your identity, of what you're called. Nobody cares whether or not you want to be called he, they. Nobody, like, it's not something that people are like. There seems to be more acceptance. Why is it that this nerd culture, and this is a question I've been thinking about since I came back from that. Why is it in this nerd culture that is just accepted with open arms far more than any other, like the sports kind of shit? Because I wanted to get away from this like non-accepting, and I want to know why is this such an
Tim
opening?
Bristol.
So I'll take a crack at it first. I think it's from a history of that sort of culture being a minority to begin with, and then accepting another minority. Being a minority to begin with makes them more accepting of another minority. That's sort of how political socialization works between groups. Is if you know what it's like to feel a certain way, then you're more accepting of people who may also feel that way. So in that case, it is probably a subgroup of another group that just makes it more accepting.
100%. And being wrestling fans is a fun gig. But the thing is, there is a subculture of wrestling fans that are massively racist, massively homophobic, and that's why
Wrestling fans from the American South.
Yeah.
No, but I think that before I really want to hear what Chaos, Aicila, and Jenni are going with this, but I also have to say my subgroup, my little outcast group, which is metalheads. I've also felt that they are very including in groups that are from marginalized communities, because they have also been outcast once, right? Even though it's been mainstream for about 20 years now, it wasn't always like that. Who can forget Dee Snider in when he walked into Congress and just owned it? Like it was fantastic. So I think I want to agree with Tim for once.
Wow.
It's okay. It's okay.
Write it
You're all
down.
good.
Write it down.
All good. Calm down. Calm
Someone
down.
clip that. Someone clip that.
Calm down.
Where's tons of mice?
I have a thought, but I want to wait for Chaos and Jenny to reply.
Yeah.
I find, generally speaking, that when you are part of like a smaller group who might be outcast or just unusual or whatever it is that they are not part of the mainstream, when there are a certain level of small, you can't really have a separation between the groups. But I found that quite often you'll get a certain level of polarization. So in a lot of nerd spaces, you'll find two types of nerd spaces. One is really misogynistic, where if I go in presenting more feminine and I don't get kind of registered as a trans person, someone will try and grab my ass within 30 seconds and everyone will laugh about it. And then you'll have nerd spaces that are like, oh, yeah, no, what are your pronouns? Cool, come in. There's tea and coffee over there, whatever. But this applies to nerd spaces, to a lot of pagan spaces I've been in, a lot of atheist spaces I've been in. There's like a lot of stuff for various hobbies that I have as well. And it's just like, it seems to me that whatever the small group is, if they are above a certain size that allows them to have two separate groups, that almost tends to happen.
I'd like Chaos. Let me come back at you in a little bit after Jenny's said their piece.
Oh boy, I'm going to make 4 enemies.
4? Only 4? I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got to go for 6, 7.
Can you hear me?
Go for the...
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear
Okay,
you.
I cannot hear you because my phone just tried to answer a call and now I can't hear anything you say until I reboot StreamYards. What I think the difference is in those two items, sport versus cosplay, is that one is dominated by testosterone and the other one isn't. And I mean testosterone, I don't mean men. Testosterone is a horrible chemical that men have to live with, and I think it makes them do really stupid things. One of which is their intense bigotry and paranoia of anybody who does not meet the extremely narrow and limiting parameters of sexuality that they think they have. Macho society destroys lots of things, and I think sport is one of the things that it's destroyed, and it's destroying further. And fortunately, because cosplay has to do with dressing up and those sorts of things, it's probably never going to be destroyed by macho shithead culture, because it's something that they would view as sissy.
Right.
Okay, and they'll stay away from it. And now I'm going to reboot this so I can hear what you got to say. I'll be right back.
So I just wanted to quick respond to Brenna in that. So the history of science fiction is rooted in this like belief that people can be rational, and that I think is a big part of it. That the golden age science fiction writers had a lot of gender and sexual variation, because they were reading the Kinsey Report and they were like, we're man enough to be rational about this. So I feel like science fiction, there's two things. When there's that root to it, and then also science fiction and fantasy are about imagining things to be different. And so you get into that and you let yourself, try on these different ideas and these different concepts, and it doesn't feel as threatening. And so I think that also draws people like me and, other folks who have maybe different expressions of gender or sexuality to that, because it feels like a place they can actually, I can get dressed up, back in the day before I was out to myself, I could dress up and I didn't have to actually be out and I could still play with these concepts. It was kind of a safe way to dip my toes in. And then when it was accepted and I found other people like me, it was like, cool. Like, I remember being at my first science fiction convention, and I walk into the big room and I'm like, the mothership has landed. My people are here.
Yay!
I felt free in a way I didn't know it was possible. And so I think, and I appreciate you bringing that up. And Wayne, I really want to say thank you for being so vulnerable and brave, because it's the only way we get to move forward is by having uncomfortable conversations outside of our comfort zone. And you all are just so great at that. It's one of the things I really respect about the bin as a whole. And I'm so privileged to be able to be part of this particular conversation and get to meet Chaos and talk with Jenni some more. And it just feels so important to me to have this kind of, fragile in some ways
back and forth
situation.
Back and forth.
But to really kind of give ourselves the chance to learn and grow together, and to make it okay that you don't know something. Because I do feel like there's a lot of well-meaning people out there who, part of why they don't end up being allies or stepping into the conversation is they're really afraid of doing it wrong. They're afraid of the embarrassment and the shame. They're afraid of hurting people. And because of that, we don't have a lot of folks participating who I think would actually support equity and engagement if they didn't feel so scared. And I think this is a great way to give people a chance to access some of that discomfort and that understanding. So I really want to say thank you so much for doing this and for inviting me. And I love that I ended up.
Aicila, thank you. Thank you. No, thank you for being part of this. Like, we muddled together this show, and we've hoarded our respective groups together. And no, thank you.
First of all, I want to start. Aicila, thank you for the kind words. We are here to learn. We've been open about that since day one. We have a bunch of opinions, but we need to learn more. And the more guests like you we have on, we learn. And Jenni, I want to address you. You said you're going to make 4 enemies. And when you said what you said, I was looking at it. I was like, what 4 enemies? And then I realized it's Tim, Mikey, Wayne, and me, because we're cisgender men.
It really took me a long time.
It took me
I couldn't figure it out.
It's the magic vagina.
Yes.
It is.
Again, it was that like Tom Prince and the atomic keys that had to turn, and then the vagina fucking wall going up.
Let me start the fire.
But here's the deal. I don't understand why men get offended when somebody says something bad about testosterone. I can't do anything about testosterone and losing my body. So you say something bad about a hormone that exists in me is not an attack on me. It has nothing to do with me. It's just a hormone. It just exists. It's just there. It's how you act on it. I think that you are absolutely correct. I feel like the whole perception of being macho and being masculinity and being and the whole thing it's toxic, but it's more it's more of it in cultures like sport, especially like football or American football, and stuff like that, and that's where those it sort of comes out. I don't care how people see me and why they see me, and that's what's one of my privileges, and I recognize that. But yes, I think that you're right, but you do not. I am not offended that there lives a hormone within me that does horrible things to other horrible people, because I don't feel like I'm one of them.
Good. I'm glad, because I do recognize I need to refine this concept a little bit so that it does flow better out of my mouth.
We all do all the time.
What a considerate thing to do. And speaking on being considerate, a couple people did not want us to talk about this on the show because they felt like it was just furthering right-wing conspiracy narratives and all that stuff.
Oh,
hold on. I've been very quiet. And I didn't say much, and I just kind of did a couple of crack wises because I wanted that person to see this. They have the link. They were able to see the stream. I want them to see that it is good to have these conversations because everyone is not at the exact same step that you are at. And that's important for people to remember is you have to meet people where they are. And if everyone thought like you, then obviously the problem wouldn't be the problem. There are certain people who are maybe in front of you and a lot of people that are way behind you. So we need
and
to
a cat in front of the camera.
Yeah, and we need to allow a space for people to ask questions. I was in the chat and most everything just kind of sorted itself out. Everyone's been very respectful. And on top of that, I want our show to be a place, a safe haven where people can come and be themselves and not have to worry about dickheads in the chat. Because they were talking about how the Christians and the conservatives, none of them were in the chat today. Because we're not their cup of tea. Y'all are our cup of tea, so thanks for allowing. Thank you to our guests for coming on.
Sounds like a great idea.
Is there time for a summation?
Yes, let's do that.
I'm getting there. So hold on, real quick, Jenny. I just want to thank you guys for coming on, and making yourselves as vulnerable as Wayne did earlier. It's very important to us. It's not cheap. It took a lot of pain and strife to get there to be open to talk about these things. So thank you for your for sharing something so important and sacred to you. It's not lost on me. On us. All right. Well, let's get out of here, shall we?
No, before we do.
Can I make that one last statement, Mikey?
Jenny wants to say something.
Sorry.
Folks, this is a contemporary issue in politics, extremely contemporary. It's happening as we speak this moment. The right-wing evangelicals are trying to take our morality of the entire nation, not just trans work, not just gay people, trying to change the morality of this country back to the 1930s. Okay? And if we don't get out there and actively campaign and actively vote and get these people the hell out of our political system, we're going to lose our democracy. It is happening. When they're talking about transgender people, and especially children and stuff, understand that they're working from a scientific knowledge where they think there's men and there's women. This binary concept that they learned in 3rd grade. Well, the science is operating more on about 30th grade. Okay, and has learned a great deal in the last 100 years that transgender people have been treated. We now know that it isn't binary, that the X and the Y have certain determining factors, of course, in what we turn out to be when we're born. But there's a whole lot of things that it affects in the head, in the brain, in the soul that are not obvious. And that is where gender lives. Okay? Whatever a person's gender is, as far as I'm concerned, has come from their chromosomes. That it's just as much their gender perception, self-perception, is just as much part of their gender as what's in their crotch.
Jenny,
that's all.
Chaos. Thank you for your perspective. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you for just giving us perspective on this whole round. This is new. It's evolving. It's progressing, and hopefully something will come of it. And you two are pioneers of this particular movement, and appreciate it. Thank you.
So for everybody on the screen whose name I'm not going to read, we're going to raid Cortez. So we will see all of you guys over on Cortez's channel. It's going to start in about 4 seconds. Get your emotes ready. Make sure you guys go to patreon.com/BinPodcast. Get those pledges up so we can get a live in-person episode of Bin. It might happen. It might happen. So we love you guys. You guys be safe, and we will see you next Binsday. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Cheerio.
Dance.
Pip, pip.
Pip and all that rock.
Tip.
Fuck off.
Tip.
Aluminium.
Aluminium.
Well done.
Cheerio.
Aluminium.